focus on learning, discipline, character formation, and the development of responsible citizens. We believe that nobody is totally against celebration, but that sort of extravagant way of doing things is not something that will help all of us. So the directive of the GES to the schools and the management that they cannot use the premises of the school to engage in those things because, one, they are doing that to protect what we call equity. Schools should be social equalizers, where merit and hard work count more than wealth. Lavish display creates visible socioeconomic division and pressure on students whose parents cannot afford. And when we don't manage these things well, it will also create a sense of entitlement mentality among some of the children. And where are we driving this country to? We have our cultural values. We have our cultural ethos. We have our traditional values. We have our religious way of doing things. That we believe in modesty. That's why the school children, when they are in school, whether you are a rich man or a poor man, son, you wear the same school uniform. There's a prescribed school uniform for every child to wear. So we cannot live in a jungle and allow everybody to do his own thing. That one is totally wrong. And it will also protect character. The trend of extravagant graduations and celebrations promotes materialism and can encourage entitlement instead of humility, responsibility, and then service, which are part of the training that we give to students. So we are also saying that it will also promote safety, decency, and order. Rowdy celebrations on campus have led to vandalism, injuries, and disruptions of others. So we are saying that these things should not be encouraged, and we should not give room for anybody to say that I have my way around it. No, we are all in Ghana. When they make laws, whether you are a rich man's son or a poor man's son or whatever, we all go by the laws and the rules of engagement.
Right.
So we can promote social cohesion.
There is the argument that, others are making that, look, this actually would go a long way to motivate the children, especially when they see the kinds of gifts people are getting. There's a possibility that those who are yet to write or who are also watching might want to work harder to enjoy similar celebrations. You disagree with that point?
The best motivation is let the child pass the exams and produce a result with the best grade. They've just finished school. What results have they produced, and it's going to motivate who? What is the terminal end of that whole celebration? Please, that argument is flawed.
Right.
That was not how we're trained. We should not allow people to create the impression that, excuse my language, we can allow anybody to do anything and go away with it. No. Schools are training grounds, and we need to allow the best systems to run the schools so that we can afford people. And we live in a community that these days we've thrown away our communal values. First, the child training lies in the hands of the entire village. And when we say the village, we are talking about the child's immediate parents, his uncles, his aunties, his cousins, his nephews, his senior brothers, his siblings. Everybody matters. That is how we're being trained. And that is what shapes you. So that when you go out, you don't become Kofi Babone. Today you have. Tomorrow if you don't have, how will the child survive? So let's encourage our students to live a modest lifestyle. When they are of age and they are working and they want to purchase their things, you can save for them and they will use that investment to do better things that will help all of us in this country.
Right. Now, Mr. Ahetochega, we heard the specific sanctions being read out by the current Director General. Amongst other things, he says that if headmasters fail to stop these kinds of celebrations, they are likely to face sanctions, one of which would be a dismissal from the schools. Wouldn't that be a stretch of sanctions for headmasters who probably may not be aware that something like that is going to happen, and then out of the blue, at the end of the exam, parents or relatives come in with lavish celebrations? Why should they suffer sanctions for that?
Well, the headmaster is the individual who manages the school. And at that particular point, everything that happens in the school is his responsibility, and you must know exactly what occurs in it. So I think that that is a fair thing to say. And even now we get back to how this particular thing we are talking about occurred. It was a ceremony that was agreed and approved by the headmaster, else it wouldn't have happened in the school. So if you are a headmaster and you happen to agree that such a thing must happen, must occur in your school, then in fact, for me, I'm still very confused about how this thing even became an event. Because it's very difficult for me to place it within the system. I mean, you are doing a graduation ceremony, and if a parent says, "I want to come and reward my children," what is the basis of the reward for the children? I mean, what is it? Has the child passed the exam? No, he hasn't passed. He has just written an exam. So what is the basis for giving him, a flashy car, or even coming to disturb us with trying to give him a flashy car? And the headmaster must be responsible for that, because you must be asked why you're allowed that particular thing to happen, so that he begins to understand that he is running an institution where equity and a sense of decorum is expected to occur, and ensure that there are balanced thinking in the school.
It's even more,
right.
Right. So you think the sanctions, outlined, which include a possible dismissal, is in the right direction?
It is in the right direction. Nothing should surprise the headmaster. He must know everything. If a parent comes to school and says, "I want to spring this surprise," the headmaster has every right to refuse it, because the results of the examination has not even come out.
Right.
And here you are celebrating an event for which you have not seen its outcome. It's very difficult to.
It's pretty even interesting that it was just because last day of the paper. It's not even like a major graduation, and then that was a celebration.
And I think that I don't know the full set of sanctions that has been prescribed for the schools. I think in many schools, and because of potential indiscipline and other things that were in school, the moment you finish your exam, you are out of the school. So there is no time for you to come and sit down and say you are organizing a graduation ceremony.
Right.
Everybody is out. So that should be it. The moment you finish writing it, and in the past, that's how we organize the school, the examinations were organized. The moment we finish Form 5, you finish our paper, you go. Any time. So we all leave at different times, and who is that? We are not even willing to sit back for giving last supper or whatever it is.
Right.
And we are gone.
Right. Mr.
So
Ahetochaga,
that should be part of it.
Right. Let me throw my last question to you, and then we can be wrapping up the conversation. You talked about knowing about these kinds of excessive celebrations in other cultures, in other countries. We are gradually becoming a very cosmopolitan world, probably for lack of better expression of it. How do you advise that we navigate it so that now that we have parents in Ghana who give birth outside and bring them here, or vice versa, we have parents abroad who want their children to be educated in Ghana. They've seen how things are done there and want to introduce it here. How do we balance it so we are not necessarily cutting out people who want to celebrate their awards, or staying, quote unquote, excessively local, for those who say that what we have done or what we've done in time past is extremely too Ghanaian?
Well, for me, I believe in change. I believe that certain things can happen, but I do not believe that culture should be structured around opulence and be weighed in that order. So if you look at how our system has evolved up to this time, we've had rich men in this country, we have children from rich homes in this country. It's not a new thing to have rich parents, but we've had parents who had a sense of understanding. And I still believe that even in America and Europe, I mean, some of the rich parents do not go to that extent of doing those type of things during a prom situation. Of course, they might say they'll hire a car for you to go there, but you don't own the car. You can hire a nice car and go there, but the car is not yours. To get up and say that I want to give a car to my child who has finished WASSE, it's a bit over the top. But for me, my concern is that these are practices that are happening elsewhere. In fact, I always have been worried about, a child goes to school and then he adopts a certain bad behavior. And I ask myself, why is it that there are so many things in the school that is happening? and you decide that this particular bad habit, you will adopt it. There is a psychological problem there. There is an emotional problem there. We have to deal with it. Why would you, for example, we knew some of our seniors who were smoking. We knew some of our seniors who were doing a lot of things that could become generally infectious. But, there were people who were very, very guided in the way they did their things and did not adopt those things. Of course, there are some children who will do that. And those are the negatives. And that is the point from which we try to structure society to adopt more of the positives than actions that will begin to show that we are elitist or we are beyond somebody or do you know who I am or whatever. No, that is not the way we want to develop this society.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Charles Ahetochega. Pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you.
He's a former Director General, Ghana Education Service. And I'm wrapping up with you, Mr. Gapson. So, yes, same question. How do we balance it? So, because cultures are gradually merging, what would you advise, especially schools or parents who want to still celebrate the awards when they complete educational levels?
So, because of the thinking that cultures are gradually emerging, does it mean that we should change our national identity? The answer is no. Schools are meant to preserve our national identity. Most of these are our students of late. Our awards, even to ask them to boo, is it abebu, or they should even quote any proverb in their local dialect that is built with wisdom, that will help them to know how best to relate and learn much about morality. They lack them. These are things that we should be talking about. So because of some few people, we should change rules to suit their interests. No. How about that one? The answer is no. We live in a country that excludes our language. We have our identity. We have our culture that we need to preserve. We have a way we run our schools. Since those things are going to help to encourage learning in the school, we should look at those things and do that. What we are talking about now, it is something that if we are not careful, it will create a national disaster. And it can lead to all kinds of things that I and you, we cannot be able to handle it. So we are pleading with those parents who are having that thinking that, look, for three basic reasons, let's stop this. Because one, entitlement breeds indiscipline. If a child gets up and says that this child A's mother was able to buy him a mobile phone after graduation when he has not even seen the child's BEC or 1C results, and that same child come and stand on another woman who cannot afford that phone, what are we trying to put across? Okay. So we need to look at that one. Secondly, we should minimize the financial burden on parents and invest those monies into critical areas that will help the child to learn and become a very responsible citizen in future. And thirdly, we should avoid creating issues that can encourage national crisis. Today, Ghana is bleeding from school violence. Ghana is bleeding from drug abuse. Ghana is bleeding from disrespect for teachers, disrespect for adults, disrespect for students, and disrespect for other things. We should look at how best we can train these our children so that, as somebody said, that key soap, the tradition goes on. They can preserve our cultural value. They can become better off than us in terms of technology. But that technology should not make them imbue in them certain conduct and character that changes their Ghanaian identity. That makes them not Ghanaian. That makes them not come from a particular family. No, we cannot do that.
Mr.
What
Gapson.
is happening in China? Chinese behave like their Chinese culture. We should also behave with our Ghanaian culture.
Thank you so much for your time this evening.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
We've been speaking to the Secretary of the National Council of Parent Teachers Association in the person of Raphael Kofi Gapson. And clearly the verdict is out there. Many of you disagreed with the issue of the celebration that was seen by you on social media, where some parents went into some of the senior high schools with lavish celebration, some getting cars, some getting all sorts of gifts and items. And the Ghana Education Service has just stamped its foot that they will not allow that to happen again. And then various senior high schools have been cautioned that they should never allow that to happen again. So in the coming days, we would update you on whether or not the various schools are complying with this directive. You're listening to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition. We are going on to some other stories in a moment having to do with the environment, issues of the rains and its attendant floods. Stay with us. Details in a moment.
Deserves hair that looks and feels amazing.
This is 3FM 92.7. Let's delve into our next major subject. And tonight, environmental conscious groups are blaming unhealthy environmental activities, including illegal mining, as the bane for the increasing flooding incidences in the country, including recent reports we are getting from Samreboi. Now, the flood situation at Samreboi in the Amenfi West municipality of the Western region continues to worsen, with rising water levels forcing the evacuation of families who had sought refuge at a Methodist church near the river. Let's listen to this report by Rama Smith. Then we'll come back in studio and try and dissect what exactly is happening regarding, especially here in the capital, Accra. I'm sure many of you, either listening to us now or at home in your cars, have experienced or seen people suffering from flood-related matters. We're told now the situation is more countrywide than just in the capital cities. What exactly is the situation in Samreboi? There's more in this report by Irama Smith.
What is happening is that we are suffering from a lack of...
What began as a heavy downpour on Monday, June 15, has turned into a catastrophe, with the Sama and Tano rivers bursting their banks. Floodwaters swallowed more than 200 homes in Aboy, Kokwase, and Popolozo, collapsing 26 buildings and claiming 2 young lives. Residents blamed years of galamsey, blocked waterways, and choked drains for turning heavy rain into a full-blown disaster. Now, affected families housed at the Methodist church close to the river are being moved to a new location amid fears the floodwaters could rise again. Hundreds remain displaced, sheltering in schools and churches as authorities race to prevent further loss of life. The big question still hangs over Samreboi. Will this tragedy finally force Ghana to confront the monster that is Galamsey, or will we wait for the next flood? Irama Smith.
And that report just summarizes what exactly the situation is in Samreboi. But here in the capital, Accra, the last few weeks have brought us some rains, and I'm sure those who have experienced it have different stories. In studio with me now is Joseph Gold Armstrong. In fact, it is Joseph Armstrong Gold Alogwe, and then also Wisdom Safo, who is with our research desk here. Before I bring them into the conversation, let's listen to the co-founder of the environmental CSO Eco-Conscious Citizens, Aula Sewa, who says that the increased nature of these environmentally damaging activities is to blame for the recent increase in flooding in Accra.
What is happening is that we are suffering from a lack of foresight and short-sightedness. You know, when you go and build on waterways, you build in forest reserves or rather on Ramsar sites, and you act as if there is no tomorrow. There are always consequences. There are always consequences. As I speak, at Siwa, Forest Reserve, the once pristine Atiwa Forest Reserve, is being destroyed by illegal miners. And we don't seem to be able to do anything about it. And we know what the forests do, how they, in addition to purifying the air and all other things, they actually absorb water. So in terms of when there's heavy rainfall, the forests have a role to play. But it seems like we've just thrown all caution to the wind, and all we are doing is mining irresponsibly, without realizing that there are consequences, or building irresponsibly on our wetlands, whether it's Sakumono, on our Ramsar sites. We just build, and the duty bearers who should be bringing in some discipline, who should be holding those who are destroying our environment accountable, they seem to be overwhelmed and not being able to do anything about it. I was a little encouraged when in church yesterday. I was listening to the Richard service, and I heard that the priest talk about building on waterways, building anywhere. The churches have a role to play.
And that is Awula Sewa. She's the co-founder of the environmental CSO Eco-Conscious Citizens. So let me bring in my gentlemen who are with me in studio, starting with you, Armstrong. So you have been around town, been reporting on the flooding situation, how many concrete areas have now become passageways for water that runs over into people's homes. The roads have been flooded to the extent that cars become those roads become immotorable. Cars stay in a gridlock for hours. Talk to us about the recent reports we are hearing about. Which areas have you visited, and what's the flooding situation?
Martin, so this year it appears that we've lost it completely, because every year I've been going to flooding areas, where you see many communities. But this year, I can count at least no less than 30 places that I've visited so far, just this year alone. And you don't forget, we are just at the peak of the rainy season, and places that usually you will not see flooding. This year, all these communities we experience. If you permit me, let me just list few of the communities I've visited so far this year. We have, as usual, the Almighty Kanishin. It's one place that every year they experience flooding, particularly around the Dansoman Junction to the First Light area. That place always gets flooded. Then you go to Odona, another flood-prone area where we experience that June 3 disaster. Every year, Odona is always in the news that it floods. Even the slightest rain leads to flooding over there. Then, not far from Odona is Adabraka Sahara area. Then we have the Nkrumah Circle, the entire Nkrumah Circle stretch area. We have Alajo, we have Nima, Madina, Osu, Dansoman, particularly Sakaman area. We have Utojo inside Dansoman. We have the Malam Market area. And if you go to the Glefe, the Gbegbe, those places, all those places, if you go to those places, you see, we used to have river, about 4 different rivers along that area. But trust me, if you go there today, the entire place has been sold, and people are building and filling the place every single day. And what makes it even more dangerous and very scary is the fact that the municipal assembly within that area, nobody has
the right permit.
It's not about even permit. I'm talking about the authorities that we have that are supposed to protect these areas. They are afraid to step foot at these places that people are building and filling, and these people are building without permits. And it's something that is happening. If you go to the assembly, it tells you, look, that place, I can't go there. The people who are building there, many of them are big men, and we cannot start them. They are party financiers. We cannot there, because if you go, you receive a call from where you fear you will lose your job. Now, beyond the Dansoma area, you come to Abelenkpe, we go to Oblogo, we have Tetegu that we saw in the news recently, and also leading to the spillage of the Weja Dam. Then we come to Old Barrier. I mean, it's another place that every year, I go with either the Works and Housing Minister, the Sanitation Minister, the Lands Minister. Every minister has been to the Old Barrier area around the NCC enclave. And right now, if you go there, today it's showered some small rains, right? If you should go there right now, trust me, you spend about 3 hours driving from Kaswa to get to Kaneshi. And it's not anything that is new. We've seen it all the time, and we've come down to, we have Adenta, we have Bombaria, and this year I also went to a place called Tema Community 5, very close to the Sakumo area, and then we also know of the Klagon flooding. Martin, these are areas that before you will never see any flooding taking place there. But this year, I visited all these places, and then Domi, I was at Domi also in the Gan East area, then Hachu area. I was there with the municipal engineers that are now trying to dredge their drains. That somebody, as I speak to you now, right along the Domi highway, somebody is building on one of the major drain systems that carry water from the Ebri Mountains down through the forest into the Odo River. The person is building to fill that place, and I mean,
nobody's looking.
Yeah, it's now that assembly now wants to now crack the whip by going to pull down that place, and then they added again that this thing you are doing, we are afraid because this person will probably go and see some big men. So it's all about big men, and the same big men are the same people that comes back to us and tell us that why are we not doing the right thing? Why are we doing the right thing? But when the whip is being cracked, people go and call them, and they come in and say, look, leave them, let them go scot-free. And that is where we are, today.
Yeah, I mean, you've painted a very worrying picture of we all seeing what the problem is, but then looks as though those who've given the authority to ensure that the right thing is done seem to be throwing their hands up in despair, just like all of us. Let's talk the specific numbers and areas that some of these things you heard Armstrong outline. What exactly the situation is. Wisdom, Safo, talk to us about the numbers. Which areas are we looking at, and what's the situation at the moment?
Martin, it's very alarming, and as Armstrong said, the situation has worsened. But I like this conversation. When we bring up this conversation, we're able to probe into the causes and look at practical solutions. But, you know, every geographical location that we have, every region that we have in this country doesn't have the same, we don't have the same problems. You see, the causes of flood in Accra are not the same causes of flood in somewhere like Western Region or Samreboi that we are currently talking about. So it's not just one blanket. So I want to narrow this down. Let's talk about the Western Region. Let's talk about the Central Region. Let's talk about the coastal areas. And specifically, let's focus on Samreboi. You know, we knew, or we've been seeing flooding occur in Accra, and usually we normally record it, but when we are hearing somewhere in the Western Region, Central Region, then it becomes alarming. The name Samreboi actually is Samreboi, means a place where the Samra River meets its confluence or tributary. So it joins its major rivers like the Tano River, like the Ire River and the Kwama River. So it is a place that is generally flood prone, if not well managed. And there is a new chip in the block, which is the Galamsey. Now, I was doing some geographical spatial analysis, and I realized that for the past 10 years, we have lost about 40% of our vegetation around the Samreboi area. 40%, Martin. And if you are talking about even cocoa farmlands, we have lost about 15,000 hectares of farmlands in just 10 years. And that's alarming. I'll just run you through some statistics around the Samreboi area to paint a picture of how severe the situation is. About 1,400 people have been affected. We heard the reports by Irama that 2 people have been killed, 14-year-old boy and a 17-year-old boy. And more than 24 buildings have collapsed already. This is serious. 28,000 people live within the Samreboi enclave, and about half of them have been affected by this. We narrow it down to how intense the rain was this year. So we realized that at the beginning of this half, GMET actually came out to tell us that the situation is going to worsen, right? But for nearly 2 weeks, Samreboi has been under repeated rain signals. So around the 3 days of the disaster, this disaster was actually caused by 3 days continuous rain. Precipitation was around 92%, which means that the likelihood of it raining has always been elevated or almost certain. And we recorded around 145.8 millimeters of rain around that area. So this is dangerous. And when this meets Galamsey, someone asks, why are we talking about Galamsey in a flood situation? You know, this Galamsey operation destroyed trees. They destroyed the natural sponge that drains or hold excess water. And these are places that are near river banks. So when it rains, and I was looking at the topography was described as undulating, which means that it is a mixture of highland and lowland. So when it rains, it sometimes collects, it sometimes flows into these rivers, and it will overflow its banks and it will affect neighboring communities. So that's the situation we are currently dealing with. Actually, this is not the first time we are recording flood around that area, but just that this time in 2023 we recorded some flooding around that area. But this time around it is very intense and we are unprepared. The situation of Galamsey is feeding into it and it's making it more dangerous. Martin.
Right. Now let's bring in the NADMO officials who usually we all run to when these issues come up. We have been joined on the line now by the director for the municipal director for NADMO in the Amenfi West District, Elvis Kofi. Mr. Kofi, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, sir.
We know that some constituents in and around the samreboi area are seeking refuge elsewhere as a result of the downpour, which in the videos we saw has submerged or taken over their homes. What is the situation today as we speak? Have you had any rains there, and how safe are the community people?
Thank you very much. It's true, part of samreboi community has been submerged by the flood water, and as I'm speaking to you, almost 1,252 people have been displaced, and now we have found or we have secured a schools and other church buildings for them to stay.
Okay, so for the 1,200 people you mentioned, I'm sure it includes men, women, and children. And you say you've been able to secure a school to house them for now. Would that be enough?
Yesterday, we had a meeting with the Summer Test Company and Regional Minister, Honorable Joseph Nelson. And then we have decided to move them from the basic schools to Tanokom Community Day School. And that will be big enough to house them or to occupy them.
And what is the situation for which reason all of these people need assistance? Is it that, and is it the first time you are reporting some of these issues of flood waters taking over their homes?
Not the first time, but looking at the situation now, so severe. Because every day in and day out, the level of the water gets increasing.
And what can we blame for this?
I believe the first thing is the continuous and the heavy rainfall within the municipality, and then the overflow of the tunnel, and then the Samreboi River, and we can't take away the illegal mining activities in the tunnel and the Samreboi River. So these are the basic three things that have been that caused this flooding.
Okay, two final questions for you, then you can take leave of us. First of all, what are the immediate needs of these people who are being housed in one of the schools you mentioned? What exactly would they need at this moment?
So far, we need relief items like food stuffs, food mattresses, blankets, and then we also have about 50 lactating mothers among the 1,252 people or the victims. So I think if you can get baby's food and a court sheet and other things, then I think it will be okay.
Right. And finally, how long are we expecting them to be there? The flood waters may not be receding anytime soon. Ghana Meteor is also warning that we should expect more rains in the coming days. So how are you balancing this act to ensure that the people are kept safe and given relief vis-a-vis the possibility of they returning to their homes as soon as possible?
This time, it depends on the rain pattern. Because if it continues to rain as you have been experiencing, then I think they will be there for more than a month or so. Because you move to some of the communities, and then you find out that the water level is at their roof, the roof of their building, and the water is still increasing. So it will be about a month or two. That's what I'm anticipating.
Wow. Okay. Are you getting any assistance from Accra and neighboring, main towns?
Yes, please. We are getting assistance from the MP, Municipal Assembly, Samatex Company, and then some individuals are also helping. The Council of State member, I think we also come from samreboi, and then other individuals are also helping with food items, mosquito nets, and but as from the Accra, we are hoping to get it. Maybe yes, but not.
All right. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Elvis Kofi.
Thank you. Yeah.
And he is the municipal director for NADMO in the Amenfi West municipality, and clearly samreboi falls under that municipality. And if you've seen the videos and the pictures, it's quite shocking how homes have been completely submerged. And Wisdom is with us here. He was talking to us about the numbers. So Wisdom, walk us through the specific numbers in terms of the land size in and around samreboi. What percentage of that has gone underwater? And maybe we can take the conversation from there. What are the numbers saying?
So, Martin, basically about 50% of the entire samreboi area has been affected.
Wow.
So that's very, very huge. And I spoke about the population, 28,000. And about 1,000, you heard the
NADMO director
saying that 1,200, right? But my estimation was actually 1,400. But let's take around 1,400 region. That's serious. 1,400 people displaced from your home. It's not something we have to joke with.
Absolutely.
But Martin, the problems we are facing, the flooding issues, we know the causes. And that's what pains me. We know what causes the floods. That yet again, year after year, we go back and we come and face the same situation.
Yeah.
We are so responsive as a people. We don't sit down. So much indiscipline. Remember when President Mahama went to UK, he said that the flooding situation is a problem of what? Indiscipline. And he also blamed the traditional rulers. And he was saying that they were giving their farmlands to places that you know is a passage for water. You give it out to developers. So we should sit down as a people. We should be disciplined. We should look forward, look at long-term contingency solutions, and not be responsive. We don't have to wait for it to rain before we start running around and giving people shelters.
Okay, and that brings in Armstrong. So on these many rounds that you've gone with ministers and people in authority, do they proffer solutions, short to medium to long-term solutions to some of the areas that we are talking about?
I can tell you that, all these ministers, the solutions, they already know them, as Wisdom said earlier. But you see, one major problem we are faced with as a country is, first of all, how we even appoint our municipal NADMO directors. Now, these are people that immediately a political party comes into office, if you are the constituency executive of the party, automatically you become the municipal NADMO director. And that is wrong. Many of these NADMO directors at the municipal level, they have no business, they have nothing, they have no knowledge on what we call disaster management. They have no business being in that seat. But here we are asking them to control an entire municipal offices, and because they are political appointees, they tend to even challenge their MCs and DCs. Their MCs and DCs have no power whatsoever on them. So they go about and say, I'm the municipal NADMO director, I'm the district NADMO director, I can say this, I can say that, and it's all about, I am the director. And they have no business managing whatever we call disaster. And look, that amenfi West you spoke about, I've done some reports along that stretch, and I can tell you, sometime 2022, 2023, I used to move around with the former lands minister, Honorable Abu Jinapo. I mean, one solid politician that's one of the best ministers, if you ask me, that if he was allowed the opportunity, though he was a lands minister, he wasn't allowed the right to do what he has to do. He would have changed a lot of things. Anytime we get to this, amenfi West, these areas, he is unable to even get down from his car to go to some of these places because of the impunity, the power that these people have, and they mine very close to the highways. And when nobody dares touch it. Everybody from 2 years to whichever years, you see all of them in the pit, very close to the highways, mining what we call minerals, destroying the entire community. Today, here we are. The entire community has been flooded. The nation has now coughed up a lot of money to go to their rescue. No, they are the same people who fight back authorities anytime authorities get there to do the right thing, Martin.
It's good you've brought this up. I'm sure that those in authority, especially the commander-in-chief, the president himself, would hear and take the necessary steps and actions. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've been speaking to Joseph Armstrong Gold Alogbe and then also Wisdom Safo, and they've been giving us the technical and educational piece of how the flooding situation is causing a problem in and around the country. You're listening to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition. And before we go, though, let's bring you some more stories. And a new performance assessment of Ghana's 9th Parliament paints a mixed picture of the House's first 500 days. It highlighted improvements in committee work and youth representation while raising concerns over legislative scrutiny, public participation, gender representation, and unresolved disciplinary matters. The report released by Parliamentary Monitoring Network, which is the civil society organization, the Parliamentary Network Africa, says Parliament must improve transparency, accountability, and public engagement to strengthen confidence in the country's lawmaking process. And on the back of that, we swing to the world of business. Bismarck Usa is with us to give us what's happening in business.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also coming up tonight, Ghana still ranks among top 10 countries with highest cost of borrowing despite recording Africa's sharpest policy rate cut. We'll bring you details of a new AFDB report. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Despite recording the sharpest reduction in policy rates on the African continent over the past year, Ghana remains among the countries with the highest lending rates, according to the African Development Bank's 2026 African Economic Outlook report. The report highlights that while the Bank of Ghana has aggressively eased monetary policy amid declining inflation, businesses and households continue to face relatively high borrowing costs. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report. Bank's 2026 African Economic Outlook, Ghana's policy rate currently stands at 14%, placing it alongside the Gambia and behind countries. World Bank's 2026 African Economic Outlook, Ghana's policy rate currently stands at 14%, placing it alongside the Gambia and behind countries such as Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Malawi, Egypt, Angola, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. The report notes that Ghana reduced its policy rate by 9 percentage points between December 2024 and December 2025, making it one of 4 African countries to slash rates by 8 percentage points or more as inflationary pressures eased. The Bank of Ghana further lowered the monetary policy rate from 28% in early 2025 to 14% by May 2026, reflecting improving macroeconomic conditions and declining inflation. However, the AFDB says the cost